Let's talk about one of the most bread and butter defenses in all of football. A coverage that you see, every Sunday in NFL. It's prevalent across every team out there, across multiple situations throughout multiple games. But for whatever reason, you just don't see that much of in Madden. And I do think I know a few of the reasons, but we're going to go over them here in this video. And that coverage, that defense is cover one. In this case, we're going with cover one whole. You guys know, I think, pretty self-explanatory, pretty obvious when you just look at the play art. You know what this defense is about. You see man-to-man on the 5 eligible wide receivers, and then you generally have extra guys in zone coverage. Okay, the kind of base look, you're getting that free safety in the middle of the field, taking that deep middle zone, and then you have somebody else in a low hook zone. And primarily you're going to see cover one whole, where that inside linebacker is that low hook. Sometimes you see cover one robber, where the other safety is that low zone hook. He's kind of swapping with the inside linebacker. But you also see cover one blitzes or situations where you even have 2 underneath zones, where it's kind of a drop 8 type of coverage. But generally speaking, that's what you're getting here. And that's what you think about when you see cover one. Everybody's covered, plus we have 2 guys in the middle of the field to help those guys. But as we know in this game, crossing routes are prevalent. And those are really, really difficult to deal with, really in a lot of different coverages, but I think especially in cover one. So anyway, what I want to do, the goal of this video, is to really highlight the nuances and the full understanding of cover one so that you can actually run it. And run it to, at the very least, a situational call, right? 3rd down, medium, 4th down, and medium. I think cover one is a terrific call. But for some of you, that might be more of a base look. I think cover one is always going to line up really well to the defense, allowing you to defend run game, RPO, things like that. And then if you can do some of the things that I talk about in this video, you can shore up on the passing side of things, on the passing coverage side of things. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to talk about a lot like shading, okay, and technique, and basically the general idea. So the first layer of what you need to understand about cover one. So divider rules, inside shade, outside shade, where's your help, that type of thing. Next, we are going to talk about some of the matching rules. So cover one is actually primarily a man-match defense, believe it or not. So there's some interesting matching rules that we're going to get into. The third we're going to get into are some of the techniques that you can do when it comes to press and half press and soft press, or even in some cases hard press, to give you an advantage against the offense. And then there is, maybe at the end, I'll briefly talk about blitzing out of cover one. I did recently release a video on the YouTube membership, Deuce Close Plus, where we talk about blitzing from 4 down fronts. And I think cover one makes that really, really straightforward, because all that you do is you lose that underneath hook zone, and your coverage is still solid throughout, right? Whereas when you're doing it out of cover 4 and cover 3 and things like that, you really have to think about how it breaks your zone and things like that. So blitzing out of cover one is really quite simple and reasonable. Anyway, so what is cover one? So cover one, you have help, okay? And you are aligning your leverage of how you play man-to-man depending on where your help is, okay? In general, when you have good on good receiver on a good defender, the offense has the advantage, right? They have first mover and advantage, and it's almost impossible, unless you're a complete huge mismatch, it's almost impossible for a defender to cover somebody man-to-man anywhere he goes, okay? So that's one thing you have to understand about man coverage. Cover one is not mono a mono, I'm going to cover you and knock you out of the play. It's simply playing smart man with smart shade, smart leverage, and using your help to the best of your ability. So where is our help? Our help is obviously inside. We have help inside and underneath from the 3 receiver hook, and we have help deep and inside from the deep zone. We also have help from the sidelines, and this is particularly important to understand what your opponent is coming out as in terms of their offensive formation. So if they are compressed where the receivers are inside, tight to the line of scrimmage, obviously we have less help from the sideline because, we don't have receivers out there basically. But in many of these kind of more standard formations, trips, double, spread, that type of thing, where you have these flanker receivers out wide, you can leverage the sideline as kind of a 12th or 13th defender in some cases. So that's exactly knowing that what you will get from the technique that you get from the defenders. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run 4 verticals, and then we're going to run the instant replay to see exactly what is going on. All right, so instant replay. Let's look over here. Obviously, it's pretty straightforward, man-to-man across the board. We have the deep middle zone right here. You have some funny business from these two guys, but we'll get into that very shortly in terms of the matching rules. Now, we look at how are these guys playing. The outside corner over here is playing inside shade. So he's positioning himself inside the receiver because there is so little room out here to throw the ball. Now, in reality, you are playing Madden with likely really good quarterbacks and opponents that just, with a press of the button, can rocket a ball out there. So in reality, you are still kind of susceptible to, sharp outcuts or comeback routes that attack this area of the field. So that's definitely a weakness. But in terms of in-breaking routes, you shouldn't have too much of an issue right here because of your inside positioning. Okay, now, of course, huge mismatches like Smith and Jigba against whoever this is always going to be a problem, right? But I'm just talking about, generically speaking, good on good. This cornerback is in a great position to defend in-cutting routes from that receiver. Very next guy over. The slot receiver can go either way. He can go inside and outside. We don't want to cover him man-to-man. We're covering him man-to-man, but we don't want to cover him head up because, again, the fence has the advantage. So what does he do? Well, he doesn't have help from the sideline, but he has help on inside. He has help inside underneath, and he has help inside and deep. So he positions himself outside of the receiver. And he doesn't even necessarily need to position himself outside and over the top, kind of like this guy, right? Because he has absolutely no help over the top, so he needs to be a little bit of a step above the receiver. In this case, this guy, he's not really a trail technique, but he's positioning himself on the outside hip of that slot receiver, knowing that if he cuts inside, you have help inside. But if the quarterback wants to throw it over the top, he's really going to have to put air on the ball, right? He needs to put a high arc on that ball, right? Because this guy's underneath, so he can cut off anything, any bullet passes, anything like that. And so really the best bet here is to throw this ball up here. But again, you have to throw that high arc, and it gives the free safety a chance to go over and help on that. Okay, so he's positioning himself outside because he has zone help inside. And then over here, you get basically the mirror look on what you get over there. So it's dependent on a divider. Now, where is that divider? Is it the numbers? Is it a little bit inside? To be honest, I don't really know where Madden defines where that boundary is, but it's kind of, you can say, somewhere around here in the seam where there's a decision point. At a certain point, the defender will play inside. At a certain point, he'll play outside. So you may feel tempted to play around with shade, inside and outside, things like that, but I would suggest you not to. By default, the game does a great job of aligning the defenders in the appropriate spots. Okay, just by default. Now, there are certain subtleties that we will get into, of course, and that we'll get into that into the third aspect, but for now, we'll get into the second aspect. The second aspect is the matching. So, what you see over here is not what you actually get, okay? So there are two matching calls in cover one. Number one is a funnel call, and number two is a banjo call. Funnel call is simply how do we deal with the running back, okay? And in this case, it looks like we have man-to-man with the with the linebacker on the opposite side of the field is man-to-man on the running back, and it kind of looks like he's in a bad position to cover him. But in reality, you're getting a funnel. Okay, so you're getting this 3-receiver hook will cover the running back man-to-man if that running back flares right, and this guy will cover the man-to-man, the running back if he flares left. Okay, just ignore what I'm doing with the tight end for now. It'll become obvious in a bit. But what I'm going to do is flare the running back left, and you'll see that the man that has him in the play art will take him man-to-man. Great job, runs down, makes a tackle. Wonderful. Now, what happens if we swing the other side? Well, you'll be surprised that there's a swap between the man defender and the 3-receiver hook defender. And, okay, so this is... I was hoping that wouldn't happen because this starts to bring into play the third rule, which is the banjo call, okay? And maybe I need to do this just to show you what I originally wanted to show you. No, okay, that's fine. Okay, that's okay. So, actually, let's do this. Let's do this. Okay, let's get this guy out of the call, and we'll just get simply the only check in place right now is the funnel call. We're getting the 3-receiver hook, converts man-to-man on the running back, and what ends up happening on the backside, is that this guy that was initially man-to-man on the back turns into the low hole defender. And so this low hole defender is, basically just a kind of a dumb zone. Like, he's not going to match anything, and he doesn't in particular play the quarterback either. So, in reality, you have a lot of options of what this guy actually does. You have even more complex matching rules in real life where this hole defender or this rat defender, sometimes you might hear it, that can kind of switch 1 or 2 or 3 times throughout the course of the play. It's a little bit more simplistic in Madden for, I think, obvious reasons. You don't want it to be too crazy and too susceptible to different issues. But the guy that ends up being this guy is simply just a hook. What would be cool if he was kind of a pseudo hook spy that can run after the quarterback, because we know that man defense is susceptible to running quarterbacks. But in any case, he's just going to be a zone defender right here. Now, what you have to understand is that if you are playing the user on this guy, those match rules aren't in effect. I think the reason being is that, most people don't know this, and they won't know that that's their responsibility. They see a zone looking type of thing, and they're going to user a zone looking type of thing. So what ends up happening here is that you're going to do that, and then the linebacker on the other side is in a little bit of a poor position to guard that running back. So for a swing route, that's not so bad, but for some of those glitchy table routes, those glitchy flat and table routes, that can be a real problem for you. So something to note. It's kind of unfortunate. It would be great if we had the funnel call for those that know that this is match and we could play that ourselves. But either maybe you flip the defense and do something like this where this guy's in a better position, or maybe you even consider using somebody else so you can allow that funnel check to come into play. The other match rule that you briefly saw there is the banjo call. And what the banjo call is a swap between close receivers, i.e. a running back on the same side of an attached tight end. So in this case, what it looks like right here, and let me just actually reset everything. Actually, I won't even reset anything. I'll leave it as this. So it looks like the back is on the backer is on the back, and the safety is on the tight end. But again, these guys are swapping based off of who has ideal leverage. So, to be honest, in this case, I wouldn't even necessarily want to swap this. I would rather have the good cover guy on the good receiver and then the backer on the back. But in any case, this is what Madden does. And so you'll see, as you saw before, this swapping of responsibilities. Again, that swapping won't happen if you're using one of those guys, but otherwise it will. Where this can be beneficial is if you get this type of thing, where you have the tight end going in and the running back going out. And in that case, it's really beneficial because again, this guy has great leverage on the flat, and this guy has great leverage on the drag route or the underneath route. So that's really, really cool. The problem with that, as with many match defenses and man defenses in this game, sometimes when you have a strong advantage in terms of leverage and shade, it's actually kind of a disadvantage for you. So we're going to see how this plays out. So you see, you get this kind of weird, funny business. So let's go into the instant replay right here. So what you get is, okay, so the other thing to say is that there are some a little bit more complex dynamics because we have a funnel check and a banjo check at the same time. And these three underneath defenders basically work to pass off these two underneath routes. So in this case, it looks a little bit weird, but we'll just go with it. But basically what you get is this guy becomes the low hole defender. And he's nice. He's kind of blocking off this route for a short time being. But this is the guy that actually has him man-to-man. And you see, you get these situations where he runs at his assignment. And in this case, it's even worse because he bumps into his own teammate. But what happens is these guys run headfirst at their assignment, coming right at them. And then they have to stop, turn around, and accelerate again while this guy's building up speed. And this is an extreme case. Like, this is about as bad as I've ever seen it. But what you'll often see is that the defender, your defender, is, you know, a few yards behind, and this guy can catch the ball and go ahead with it. So that's a little bit unfortunate. Where, and I hope, you know, with all the improvements over the recent years with logic and some of the leverage things, this is one big aspect of the game that I hope sees a lot of improvement because. Yeah, it's unfortunate where a guy will have a severe advantage, a huge advantage in terms of his initial position to guard that route, but that actually works against him in this game. What I have found is that you can show blitz on your linebackers, so right on the D-pad and right bumper, and if you bring these guys closer to the line of scrimmage, I feel like they do a better job of attaching themselves to these routes. Again, you kind of had this weird swapping type of behavior. Let me see if I can flip these guys. And let's see if I get a bit of a bitter situation. Nah, see, it's still unfortunate that he does that. So that's something you have to watch out for. I've definitely seen situations where I do this, you know, show blitz on the linebackers, and it does help cover that tight end coming across underneath. But again, you know, you have this kind of running back here. Let me actually do this. Let me do this. Let me float the running back to the other side just so we don't have the funnel call. And then we will just have the oh no, that doesn't even make sense. No, that doesn't even make sense. Anyway, forget that. So watch out for that. That's a big issue that you're going to have to deal with. But really, in reality, what's going to be happening, you know, probably you're going to be usering the three receiver hook. And what you'll generally want to do with the three receiver hook is find the first crosser and help on that. So generally speaking, you're going to get this type of situation, and you're going to help on this crosser. Okay, so something like that. Okay, some of the other things that I want you to consider when playing cover one, and that is to do with the positioning of your defenders. Okay, so on the outside, you have inside leverage on these guys outside. Okay, it's a funny way of saying it. And they should do a great job against post routes and digs and things like that. Okay, does a pretty nice job. He kind of lets the receiver outrun him, but I think he did a pretty good job of not letting him burn him. The one issue is that even though that these guys outside are inside shade, they're still really far off the receiver. So obviously things like stops, comebacks, things like that are going to be a problem for you, but also shallow crossers, right? So shallow crossers, you know, this is one of the reasons why you may not play cover one and you may go to something like cover three match, which is kind of a mix of cover one and cover three. You can pass off those routes and, you know, leave it to one of the other zones. In this case, you're locking onto that route, but his off coverage, his off alignment means that this is going to happen. And sure, he does have a little bit of help from the three receiver hook. That's nice there. But there's so much going on with the tight end and the back and the slot receiver. You don't necessarily want to commit those inside zones to those outside guys. You'd rather be able to lock up on the outside. The one thing you would say is, okay, let's press. So press does a great job for the most part. Okay, in this case, oh my gosh, he got absolutely roasted. But for the most part, press should be pretty good at defending that. But I wouldn't even do that because press, we know, is like basically a 50-50 chance that you're going to get beat over the top. Okay, so I would never even do a hard press when I'm running cover one. What I would rather do is two options. Number one, you would press and you would shade over the top, because shading over the top means that you're not going to put hands and jam that outside receiver because you don't have help over the top. But also I think it helps be much more sticky underneath for those receivers underneath on those drag routes. Okay, so you see he did an absolutely terrific job right here. He has good position. He didn't waste his time, you know, trying to chuck that receiver, try to get hands on the receiver and get beat. He simply just mirrors him and maintains position. Obviously, you get this absurd issue where he just doesn't see his own teammate. So again, you know, if you're playing the three receiver hook, you probably want to get out of the way. And so you let this guy cover his man all the way across the field and make this an impossible throw for the quarterback. Okay. The other thing you can do is actually just show two. Okay, now in this case, it kind of messes things up. I think for big nickel over G, I don't like it just because this inside slot corner really moves inside, and then you get this situation where this guy's really far off the tight end. But I also like cover two because you're not so far off. You're not so far off that you're getting easily beat underneath, but you also giving some cushion so you don't get beat over the top. So again, you know, you're a little bit stickier right here, and you can force a knockout or at least just make a tackle for 4 yards or whatever. So I think I would never play cover one just like this. I'd always try to get some advantage on the outside with press. Okay, so I would either run show two or I would run press and shade over the top. Okay, I'd run press and shade over the top. Now, you do have other considerations, okay? Once you get into tight looks, okay, so let's go bunch, maybe bunch X nasty. Once you get into tight looks, you know, you're not playing inside leverage over here on the outside receiver, you're playing outside. Okay, so this guy can go inside or he can go outside. So you lose there. So for these compressed looks, you might want to steer away from cover one. But at the same time, it does give you a bit of an advantage because now you can do a hard press. You can press on this guy. You can press on this guy out here. Now again, big nickel over G is a little bit weird sometimes. You see just kind of the alignment of some of these guys. So, you know, you wish you would kind of come down here so you can be in a bit of a better position. Because you have this deep safety. And so he can help over if this guy gets beat over the top or if this guy gets beat over the top. Now, in reality, you know, this is a formation that a lot of top-level Madden guys are playing, and they might find the edge on you with certain route combinations or certain routes, so keep that in mind. But again, you know, here you have an advantage. You can play a hard press on the guy, and if he gets beat, that's okay because we have the safety over the top. So what you lose in terms of I can't necessarily play inside because I don't have help from the sideline, you gain in the fact that you have now help over the top. So really, that's really important. Try to find a way of incorporating press when you're playing cover one. Either a soft press for if they're playing out wide or a hard press if they're more narrow. Now, the problem here is if you have something like regular gun bunch where you have compressed on one side and and spread on the other side, then it's kind of difficult because you can't pick and choose. But anyway, that's that. Okay, so we're about 25 minutes into the video. I've blabbered on a lot. I wanted to talk about blitzing, but it's it's more of a front related thing. So definitely check out the YouTube membership if you want to look more into that. Cover 1, I think it's a cool coverage. I think you should play it. If you have any tips, any thoughts, any questions that I didn't cover, definitely leave that in the comments, and we'll see you guys in the next video.